La Lanterna, a spotlight in Italian football, is a podcast that dives into the beautiful game seen from the eyes of two fans from the oldest team in Italy's point of view. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, Canadian and Genovese, together with my friend Matt Killen, an American-born and Genoa fan. Every week, we'll tell you all you need to know about the only team you need to know about, Genoa CFC. Plus, we'll have guests and provide updates from around the magical world of Italian football. Benvenuti, welcome to La Lanterna podcast. This is Fabrizio with my best buddy.
Ciao Fabry, it's Matt. How you doing?
I'm good. So we're here to talk about this match day 20, what is it?
24 for us. I suppose for the league it was. There are a couple teams that did not have, obviously, did not.
Yeah, Atalanta has one game in hand, but it is officially match day 24 with a loss at home against Gasperini, or I would say, I should say Atalanta.
It was against Gasp, of course.
It was. Damn it. Anyways. So the law of the ex, or of his pupils every time he plays against one of his ex-players. Mm-hmm. But yeah, where do you want to start?
Well, I think we can start with should we start with the opening goal for Atalanta? I think it was relatively uneventful prior to that moment in time, but I don't know. I mean, it was a well-taken goal. I think there was some conversation about anytime these types of things happen, someone wants to point a fault or something like this. If you remember, it was kind of a pretty quick breakaway moment, and there's this kind of communication that happens really, really quickly between Vogliacco, I want to say between also Sabelli, if I'm not mistaken. They're kind of both retreating, and Vogliacco's given instruction basically to track back and to more directly kind of keep an eye on did Kettelare. The ball gets played in there, and it looks more like Vogliacco was playing space or in a zonal marking thing or something. And it ends up being an unmarked but incredibly well-taken goal from De Kettelare. It scores 1-0, and you see a bunch of guys with their hands all of a sudden at their waists. And how did this happen? How did we let this goal happen really quickly? My personal reaction to this is that I don't think that it was entirely Vogliacco's fault, but there's clearly like some problem with the communication and the movement. He was easily the closest player in that position. And I think his interpretation of where to play in his space, maybe in the time, was misguided because of the fact that we were on a breakaway. But, this is something that happens very, very quickly. In my personal experience, I can really only equate it to like a basketball situation where there's a fast break and you need to move to somebody else who you normally wouldn't be assigned to guarding because you just have to. I think this maybe is slightly different, but nonetheless, optically, it looks kind of bad. And you have one ball in, which honestly was kind of a simple ball. It wasn't like some splitting pass or something. And everyone's looking around like, how does this guy have acres of space? He takes one touch and has a beautiful first-time shot, and it's a crazy goal. But it's also a goal that I think you probably could have put pressure on or prevented from happening. How do you think about it, Fabry?
I can't feel to fault entirely Vogliacco. We were in numeric superiority, so it was 3-2. We had Badel in the middle. There was Vogliacco, which was doubled up. That was the one that started to do the run. And I agree with you. It looked more like a schematic from a zone perspective rather than on the man. Mm-hmm. And you had Sabelli, which was the one taking care of the ball possessor. And essentially what happened was Vogliacco wasn't really necessarily looking at behind him. If he had done that, he could have also lost him too, mind you.
Right.
And all what happened is, as soon as the ball was kicked, that's when Vogliacco turns. He sees the Catalan already having the ball that got to him. Mm-hmm. And this is where I find that it can't. Well, not that it can't. I should say it's not entirely Vogliacco's fault, because it was a wonder goal. Like, I'm sure, he's on fire. Mind you, like he really this year, it's an explosion, and this is just only a remarkable goal from his perspective. The guy stops the ball, and with the ball still in the air, he kicks it with the other foot. So he stops it with the right, turns around, kicks it with the left when it didn't even touch on the ground. If he had, everything, you can't really do anything with ifs and whats, but if he had stopped it differently, like putting the ball down, etc., Vogliacco would have had a lot more time, and he probably could have
He would have, yeah. I mean, I think like if there's a problem with it, the problem is that it was effectively a free shot at goal that took a lot of skill to maneuver quickly. But like, even if that happens and he doesn't get it perfectly on that first touch, excuse me, not Sabelli, Voyako would have had a complete lunging tackle to have done anything because he was not close enough. And for me, there was a misunderstanding that's obvious because you see the direction. If you kind of slow it down, you see him being directed to go back, and he goes back to that space. But then the Ketelare is over here. He's on the other side. And then the ball gets played in immediately because Atalanta see exactly what's happened. And Viaco's like, I went to the space, but the ball's over here.
Right.
The player's over here. And so I think like in that moment, there's something that was either communicated incorrectly or understood incorrectly. And if there's pressure on the Ketelare before that happens, that shot doesn't happen in the way that it does. But at the same time, was it even the right decision for Voyako to drop back in that space? Should it have been Sabelli? I mean, probably yes, is the right decision for it to be Voyako because it's more of a central defensive position. But at that time, they were also both pretty much even with the players at that window. And I don't know. I think there are a couple of different things to look at. I don't think it's just, wow, we have a complete donkey of a defensive player in Voyako, because that's not who he is or how he plays. But something was wrong with that beyond the fact that it was a beautiful strike that could have been prevented defensively, I think.
I still add to the fact of the beauty of the goal itself. Like if he had played it differently, it would have gone differently also, because how he kicked it in midair, it took that curve that, because you also have to see it from Martinez's perspective, that he was on it. He was just like millimetrical behind. It kind of got behind him, but that's because of the type of kick that the ball took.
It was a wonderful strike. It was a try your best, but you're not going to stop this type of a strike that he put.
That's right. That's right.
And so, it was unfortunate. There's no question, but at the same time, it was one of those ones. Personally, I don't know how you felt about it. I think you just kind of have to go again. It's early enough in the match. It's a wonderfully taken ball. That sucks. This isn't good, but we have at that point 70 minutes plus to play. So
that's right. So this happens early-ish on. So this was the 22nd minute. And the first, I have to say, also commend this. Like, sure, Atalanta, actually, no, there's no sure. Like, Atalanta is on fire themselves as well. I personally think that Atalanta right now is the strongest team, perhaps edging Inter. And we knew that. So we knew it was not going to be an easy match regardless. Obviously, we can only hope that it would have went differently. And we almost even did that differently, but it didn't happen. Yeah. So first half ended 1-0 for Atalanta, but with 3 shots on goal for us and 1 shot for them, which was the actual goal. So what I'm trying to say with this is, yes, first half ended 1-0 for them, but there were more chances on our side.
We had some opportunities. I think this match was kind of a weird one to react to, I think, because looking at the statistics straight away, you're right, by the way. I like what you're doing with this, because obviously if you're looking 4-1 or anything like that, or there's like this kind of tendency to overvalue or overvalue Atalanta's performances, underappreciate what Genoa have done. And I think it's right to say that, like, it wasn't like we didn't have chances in the first half. It wasn't like we didn't have our own opportunities in this first part of the match. I do think that, like, we'll talk about this a little bit more. It felt to me like, barring a couple of our chances, there were a couple in particular at the end of the match, we have a lot of half chances in this game. And that's something I think we need to kind of maybe change a bit. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the second half. You're right to say that we found some opportunities.
Before we go to the second half, only a quick comment on what De Ketelaere has done right after scoring.
Yeah.
It was just beautiful to see when he does that action of, the hands behind the ears, and everybody got mad. I think it was nothing necessarily against us, but the beauty was seeing Sabelli run there and say, you gotta get out of here because you're right in front of our Gradinata and you have to leave. I think it was like even the Gradinata suit, mind you, but still, you're like, get away from our fans.
That's our Gradinata now. Doesn't matter. We've claimed it.
Traded it. Okay, so second half, beauty. It started to a point that Atalanta was not understanding anything. The first 20 minutes were perfection to the point that Gasperini freaked out. He was yelling at his players to the point he has to do a triple substitution like that early on. That means whatever Gilardino said in the locker room was phenomenal. Anyway,
Yes.
to that, what happens is on the 51st minute,
There you go.
what happens?
I mean, just a wonderful, wonderful goal. I was thinking about this because there were a couple of moments that happened, get some chances before this. And I was thinking to myself that, Badel's a player that I think sometimes gets underappreciated. And one of the things that I tend to like about him is he doesn't really let himself get sped up. And as much as this is a moment that is entirely about Malinovsky, I thought that the layoff pass from Badel to allow this goal to happen was just such a Malinovsky type of a play where the ball comes into him pretty quickly and he just really calmly, let me just knock it over here to this guy who's right next to me and who's going to just rocket the shit out of this thing. And he does that. And it is a quintessential Malinovsky strike. Absolutely nothing you can do about it. So much power, just top bins type of a goal. And all of a sudden it's 1-1. I mean, it was amazing. Then you have to get off your seat when you see a goal like that.
Now Malinovsky wants to get in on the act. Malinovsky hits one! Ruslan Malinovsky with a trademark finish. Draws Genoa level. One of the sweetest left foots in Italian football.
Are you okay if I say that the man of the match, in my opinion anyways, Badel?
I agree with you.
MVP of the match.
I honestly think that when we're looking at how things are working and how we're finding these moments, when you look back at this season, you look back at this match, more often than not, Milan Badel's name is there somehow in these moves. And it doesn't get talked about all the time. People want to talk about how he's slow and old and all these other things, but he is really, really critical part of our team and how we find our moments and our spaces. And I'm with you. I have no objections with him being labeled as that guy, especially, by the way, I hate to say it, but we get a little bit later in the match. I have some not so great things to say about Malinovsky. So I think it's appropriate.
This is the tie. We're pumped back again. A great start. Still a momentum for Genoa, but unfortunately only, and that I think is what also one of the detrimental moments which made a difference to the match itself.
Yeah.
There was a foul.
Yeah, it's a foul. Atalanta are approaching goal. Was it Retegui? It seemed like it might have been an attacking player. Am I making that up? That actually made the foul? I can't remember who had done it, but it looked like one of our taller players. But anyway, it's foul outside the box. Probably, I don't know how far you would say it was off of the goal, but it's a dangerous free kick place to give the ball away. We line up, set a wall up. It ends up being just a very well taken free kick. I think Coop Meters is the guy that ends up scoring this one. And all of a sudden we're back to being down again.
Now, I listened to a interview after the match by Malinovsky, and I didn't notice it until he said it. And then obviously I don't have the measuring tape, but he did say that in his opinion the wall was a little way too far compared to where it should have. Having said that, the kick was perfect. Nothing to fault our defense. The barrier was perfectly put, and it just took that amazing curve in the perfect not spot where it should have went.
I'm really glad you said that, though, because my only reaction to this, so it's I do think I'm not against giving Coop Meters his flowers. It was very well hit, deserved goal, but it looked weak also. When you look at the replays, when you look at this thing, first of all, I have to say, can we just stop having guys laying on the ground during free kicks, please? How many times does that ball actually get scored? Really? You have a goalkeeper who's also competent at getting down on the ground. They are taught to do this. We have to have a player laying down there on the ground and forfeiting a piece of space. The thing that really bothers me about this goal, as much as it was a great and well-taken goal, this thing fucking barely gets up. It barely gets over the wall. And it looks like we have almost a gap with where the ball is able to get over our wall. And even more damning, for my opinion, this isn't a top corner, bottom corner goal. It's really not. The way that Martinez is placed, he can't do anything about it. He can't get to the ball. He does everything he can to get there. But I hate to say it, and we have seen this before from him, I don't know if the positioning was exactly right, because the way that should have been set up is that opportunity on the right side of the goal should have been completely canceled out. and it wasn't, obviously. I mean, granted, the ball goes over the wall, but Martinez, like, when you look at how that ball gets placed in the net, there's still a couple of feet between that ball and the goal post. And so, like, for me, that's where it looks like something doesn't feel like this was executed correctly. And you see a guy fucking laying on the floor. Like, there's just all these other things. I know that's what people do nowadays. It's how people prepare for these things. Maybe I'm railing on that too much because it wasn't about having another player left or right as much per se, but I do think that obviously you want to have your wall lined up with the posts. It didn't look like they were completely lined up that way. If they were, maybe it really was just like a perfectly taken kick. But something seemed optically a little bit off about how that goal got scored, just based off of it wasn't a big in-swinging thing. It wasn't a free kick that really went up and over. It kind of like knuckleballed and barely sailed over. And then it hits our net, but it doesn't hit the bottom corner. It kind of hits like the middle third. And so it seemed like maybe we could have done a bit more there, but it was still a well-taken goal. I don't want to completely detract from it.
I don't know. In my opinion, I see what you're saying with that. In my opinion, obviously, the factor of the distance can make that difference.
Yeah.
The person lying down, whatever, it's a new thing that a lot of teams, a lot of players think that it's cool. Maybe sometimes some goals that are flat down are made that way, especially if you do it very angled. But to your point of you've been a goalie, if you have your wall and a whole bunch of other players from the opponent team in front to a point where it's covering, you kind of have to, I think you end up putting yourself in a way where either you don't see anything and you see it last minute, or you see it and you have to find a spot where you can see it, and maybe it was a little bit too much to his right. I don't know. Regardless of the distance, regardless of the position from Martinez, it was a very well kicked ball.
Yeah, you can't take too much away from Koopmeiners. It wasn't like this wasn't a blunder, but it did seem like maybe something could have been done better, but it wasn't like a howler from the keeper or anything. It's fair.
Then obviously that puts a damper on the match itself. We didn't give in. It was still open up until the dying minutes of the match itself. Mm-hmm. But before I go on to that, I wanted more to talk about what do you think about the substitutions. So the first substitutions happened around the 70th minute. So this was already after the 2 goals, where Strootman and Riddell are replaced with Martin and
Kelebekiban. I got to say, they were sort of surprising substitutions for me. Like we talked about Badel making a great moment in this match, and for him to come off on 63 was a little bit odd. And then, obviously when you think about it, like Aaron Martin coming in and Caleb Ekuban, like these two they're definitely not like for Strootman and Badel. They're very different players than these guys are.
Friendship was lateral. He went central after the sub. Martin took his place on the side.
Right.
And Ekuban just took over Strootman or Badel anyways, and go with the second forward, right? And bringing Albert back, right?
Yeah, right. And I mean, it's basically more of an attacking lineup is kind of what it is. Like if you look about it from that perspective, I have to say, unfortunately, in concept, because I honestly think I'm sort of dumbfounded about Aaron Martin's performances generally for us this season. And he's not really looked like the player that he looked in Mainz, but in concept, based off of the player he was in Mainz and maybe the player that he is in the training ground, he's a better attacking option in that same space. You would have definitely say we have a better chance of a ball coming in or, an opportunity for Aaron Martin out wide than Friendrup out wide. Put Ekuban in place of Badel. You and I both, I believe in Badel as a chance creator, but obviously Ekuban has a little bit of something different. But they're both, for me, still, I'm kind of paying some respects to Gilardino in my analysis of this. I have to be honest with you, I don't really agree with the substitutions, and I don't understand particularly why we would have made these changes at that juncture. But I mean, maybe I'm missing something. Did you feel the same way about it? Like, how do you think?
I was stumbled and not unsure of why was that happening. Rumors have it that both Strootman and Badel have asked to be subbed because of, I don't know, finish the juice, because they were running like crazy and or maybe some cramps. No, maybe not cramps. I don't think there were any cramps, but I know that they asked, this is what I heard from the sidelines, that that you heard they were asking the bench, so Giraldino, for them to be subbed. Now the question here is why? I guess thousands of things, because what you said also earlier, they're a little bit older, while Strootman maybe was the work. I don't think he should have been, maybe in this type of match, for better, for worse, you know what I feel about him. I think Thorsby perhaps was a little bit better than Strootman.
Yeah.
Well, Bedell was perfect. I wish we had 10 of him, but unfortunately, with his age, and let's be lucky if we can still keep him for one more year after this one. But my question is, Ekuban, I can see that we've seen that before. We changed the module from 3-5-2 to 3-4-1-2, and that gives a little bit of also, Goodmanson was also suffocated once again, similar thing that we saw with Empoli match, and he just didn't. It was also I would say he was among the few that I would give a lower vote. Why? Because also thanks to the defense of Atalanta, but also because he's not the Goodmanson that we're used to see anymore.
Yeah, he didn't make his mark on the match. I guess you could say that for sure. It wasn't something where you came away with that like wholly impressed with what he had done.
And then who do you put on the side? Well, if you're bringing Friendship to the middle, you could either think about Spence or Martin. The difference between the two, perhaps he just got back on the bench and he just does not have enough, I guess, stamina or reliability. But I think that the choice of Martin more lies on the fact that Martin is better in defending while Spence is purely more on the offense side. So putting in Ekuban, perhaps Gilardino was thinking more to be covered at back.
I suppose. It does feel weird though, right? Because I don't think we would think of Ekuban as a defensive player.
No. I mean Martin.
Oh, Martin. Yes. Yeah. For Martin is more of a
instead of
defensive versus Spence. Yeah. I mean, I suppose I could see that a little bit, but I don't know. I haven't seen it all season, so I feel like almost it'd be better to roll a dice. But again, we're not in the training sessions every week like these guys are. This is a player that I can attest, having watched a decent amount of Bundesliga, does have talent. It just doesn't seem to be materializing for us, unfortunately. But
then a few minutes after that, we have around the 76th, we have by Scalvini that this is another weird one where it got annulled. It was correctly done so.
Yep.
But it took forever for VAR to decide it off.
Yeah. Wasn't this the weird one where like Martinez makes 3 or 4 saves and then it looks like he clears the ball off the line, but actually he didn't clear out the ball off the line, but then one of the players was offsides. And so after all this conversation and people saying things about, oh, it should have been a goal, it shouldn't have been a goal, it ends up getting disallowed because of offsides, right?
That's right. So I mean, the call was the ref had called it goal because obviously he gets the buzzer on his wrist saying that the ball did go in after the second save. 2 or 3 saves actually by Martinez. It was amazing. Even when the ball went in, it was practically a save, but unfortunately it was in the curved side of his belly, which was within the line, while his legs and feet and hands were out, and it kind of got sucked into where his belly was, and it crossed just for a smudge the line. But my point here to comment on this one was, how long can it take to make a call?
It took way too long. I mean, there were multiple times in this match where the match got, kind of, I think, artificially extended. This is one of those moments. I don't understand why it seems so difficult to use VAR in any of our matches, but it just always seems like anytime it's applied, it makes the game more obtuse than it was otherwise. So
I'm thinking always the most obvious one comes to that handball not given as a handball. So a validation of a goal to Pulisic from the Milan match. Why they took forever in this match against Atalanta, the comments were, we were looking for the right image. Well, what happened to that looking at the right image against, like this was a goal again. You have to make sure that goal is validated correctly.
Right.
Well, in the Milan match, we didn't have enough images, but now they had, great, thanks for disallowing it, mind you, right, against the Atalanta. But anyways, so that goal gets disallowed. That 10 minutes definitely changes things because it also, you're missing out on a little bit of a concentration. You're not really having any powwow where you can talk with the team. You can, but it's a little bit different than, all in the locker room talking or in a circle. It's not something that you really often see in football and soccer. Anyways, that goal gets disallowed after a good 7 minutes, 8 minutes, anyway, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the match continues. There were a lot of chances on both sides, to the point that Gilardino decides to change things up again. And this is funny because I was talking with my wife and I said, well, I can see why he's doing this. Losing 2-1 or losing 3-1, it doesn't really matter. As long as you try to get something in there, and at least you can try to achieve the tie. Because what happened was, on 83rd minute, you see Sabelli coming out for Messias. So you already know what's happening there. Messias, he can do, obviously, the side, the fifth, in this case, the fourth of the midfield.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, he's way more forward compared to Sabelli. Definitely has a better foot than Sabelli. So I can definitely see this change happening. Then, on the 90th minute, again, dying moments of the match, the change was pulling out Vogliacco and having Vitinha coming in.
That's right.
And that's where everything happened, meaning the match at that point was 2-1. So I disagree with all those fans that say it was childish call by Gilardino. It was a rookie call. It was the worst thing that he can do. Nobody ever does that trying to win. All these comments. I think I probably would have done the same thing. Mind you, even himself, he did say in the interview, saying after the 4-1, right? He says, well, obviously it's I did put too much at front, but it was something that I called in that moment, right then and there, to see if it was able to get in. And what I'm saying all this is we had a lot of traction in the front, and we had two counterattacks that were especially the one that killed us.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get it from both sides a little bit. Like, I mean, I don't think it was anybody's intention to give up 2 more goals in extra time, but you could also understand that, like, we already don't have a point in this match. We need to find a way to get a point. At the same time, I sort of understand some of the fan comments, because the way that it looks, it's kind of like, hey, how do you score goals in soccer? Let's put 4 forwards on the pitch at the same time. Like, that's not really like how it works. It's not how this game works. You don't just put a bunch of attacking players out there and they just score goals because they can. There needs to be, and granted, we didn't have time really for a lot of progression and buildup and things of that nature, but there has to be some sort of balance in the squad, and just to throw a bunch of guys on there. Granted, we're doing this in phases, and when we're subbing these guys in, there's maybe like, it's not like we're just completely shuffling the deck, but it does look a little bit like, all right, I mean, three of our last 4 subs we put on were forwards. I consider Ekuban a forward.
I personally think both Ekuban and Messias are legit. So it changes the module from a 3-5-2.
Oh, you mean substitutes? Yeah.
Right? Then Messias is a 1-to-1. It's just different characteristics, but it's a 1-to-1. The major difference was with Vogliacco's exit and Vitinha's entrance. And in fact, that happened on the 90th minute, and the 2 counterattack goals were on the 90th plus 10th minute and the 90th plus 13. So, I mean, it's okay. It's normal. Whether we like that or not, the tracking was way in front. And if you have more people up front and you have this counterattack with the quality of squad that Atalanta is, and only one point that I wanted to say there, sorry there, Matt, but was on the 3rd goal. So on the 90th plus 10th minute, the goal was done by Costa. Gentleman, contrary to the other goal, where he did not celebrate. Similar to what Malinowski has done as well. He did not celebrate as well. But the beauty of that aspect was how much we were trying to score. You saw that everybody was sweating in a sense of trying to get that point, right? Where when we did have to concede the goal itself, the whole entire stadium applauded the team.
Yeah.
For a goal against.
Everybody it was beautiful. And in the end, like, there's a battle in this team that continues, and the desire. And I think moments before that, we were I would call it mainly unlucky. It was I think, very quick type of a play. Like a ball comes into the box, and Ekuban, I think, has like this really short pass to Goodmanson, and it seems like it either cut him off guard or something. And whatever happened, Goodmanson wasn't really fully ready to do a whole lot with it. Maybe it just was too quick of an opportunity, and there wasn't a whole lot else that anybody could have done. But if he has a bit more awareness there, that's probably a goal, because he's onside and he's right in front of the keeper. We score that, then it's 3-2 us, and then we're locking up in the back instead of pushing forward. And then, as you mentioned, because we're pushing forward, we start to have these counterattack moments that are available, and it's a shitty response, ending to that is we concede. I agree with you. The Zappacosta thing, I think, was kind of touching, because he only played with us for a season, if I'm not mistaken.
Half a season too.
Yeah. And that doesn't normally happen when you have a player that comes in for that period of time and all this other stuff. But he obviously felt a connection to the club.
A pure connection that he had, one, because of the welcome that the fans have given to him. He had a very bad injury to his ligaments, and everybody thought he was done. So we gave him the opportunity to show that he was still there, and he was an amazing player for us back then.
I mean, he was the reason why we stayed up that season.
Definitely
one of the reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it was a beautiful moment. It was unfortunate. I only come back to this point because I think there's truth on both sides. Like, Gilardino needs to be able to push boundaries and find ways where he can understand how to break through. Sometimes that means failing. I would consider what he did a failure. I don't think it was well. It's kind of like, we're not playing hockey. We're not pulling the goalie. Like, we can't do that, but you have to find
ways. You could. You don't do it, but you could.
We could. Yeah, we could. Yeah, you're right. That's true.
Or you put the goalie up front as well, right?
Yeah.
Or you see that happening too.
Right. This happens sometimes. But anyway, he's trying to find ways to find something. And I think the feedback that he got in this match pretty clearly was,
don't do that.
Don't do that. It didn't change the outcome, really. I mean, it hurt us on goal difference, but like, maybe that doesn't matter. I think it's fine so long as it's a lesson. But if we start doing this again, I'll be like throwing my drink at the TV or something.
Let's suppose that it's not going to happen again. He's not a dummy.
No, I don't think so either. Yeah,
and you're right. He is experimenting. It's probably, I can say, better done against Atalanta than another match.
Oh yeah,
Udinese. Don't do that against Udinese. You have to be best, right? Anyways, all right. So actually, before we go to the break, we have a quick recording together with Dan. If you remember it from the first leg from the Atalanta pod, guys, he's the one from Atalanta Las Vegas, and he has a few comments. Hey, Dan, great seeing you again. How was this match from your point of view?
Well, I guess for the neutral, it must have been a fantastic match to watch because it was really, really exciting. For the Genoa fan, with the result, probably not so great. For Atalantini, 4 wins in Serie A on the trot, can't complain. The 4-1 scoreline definitely flattered. Those last 2 goals in like the 80th minute of stoppage time, it seems, was purely from the counterattack as Genoa was trying to equalize. But you really can't ask for more in a match. Both teams played really, really well. Both teams made a lot of mistakes, and they paid for it at some points. But the 3 goals, really, the first 3 goals were real bangers. The Charles de Ketelaere goal, the Malinovsky equalizer, of course, that hurt my feelings a lot to see it next. But hey, he didn't celebrate, so that's all that matters. And then 10 Cup Miners, amazing free kick, which really cut the legs as Genoa. Usually Genoa isn't really, really great in the second half, something that we know about their season. And they started off that second half like gangbusters and honestly felt like they could actually win this. So when Cup Miners put that in, our first direct from free kick goal of this season, pretty much it definitely didn't end it, but it did something right at that right moment. Genoa was definitely on the ascendancy there. And unexpected, kind of out of nowhere, great free kick from Cup Miners. But I have to say, that is a hard place to play. That stadium, that atmosphere has to be one of the best in Serie A every year. And that's the best that I've seen all year for any stadium. So it's got to be very, very tough to play in there. I mean, Bologna, Juve, Inter, all have struggled at the Marassi when facing Genoa away, not just because the stadium is fantastic, but because the team is absolutely fantastic as well. You can't not compare this Genoa squad to what we've seen from Gasperini, from his Atalanta squad for a myriad of reasons, but that high press and just ultimately some of the skill that was involved there, a fantastic, fantastic game. We were very, very fortunate, I think, to come away with 3 points. Maybe not fortunate. I think we made good for it. But Genoa really, their position in the standings belie how good they are. And it was a fantastic. I'm so happy to have 3 points out of that game, Fabry, to tell you the truth. The reverse fixture was a tough one for us, and that was without Retegui, and I think you were missing Strootman as well. So now with this full squad, I mean, we really, like I said, we knew this was going to be a tough match going in, regardless of whether you're home or away. You're a tough team this season. So I definitely think that Atalanta is peaking at the right time. I think we have a little bit more depth than Genoa probably has. Over the last few years, I think we've seen that the way that the squads have been, obviously Genoa coming up from B, but it's really an amazing turnaround. And, Gilardino being one of the, his mullet, by the way, is getting a little out of control, I have to say. But Gilardino being a disciple of Gasperini, you can't deny the connection and kind of the similarities in the way that they play with the three at the back, of course, the formation. I was really surprised at Retegui in the way that he was playing. He was really giving Barrett Jimshiti a hard time. In my mind, I was like, man, we probably need to take Jimshiti out. He's not used to playing against such a mobile forward like Retegui. And of course, Albert is Albert, right? I mean, anybody would want to have Albert Gudmundsson on their team. He's good enough, I think, to start in just about any Serie A squad, even near the top of the table, for my opinion. Genoa, honestly, I see them as one of the if they can keep this core together and keep Gilardino, they have to be able to push for European spots next year. Absolutely, 100%. I am very jealous of your goalkeeper, by the way that he can play with his feet and he makes great saves. Martinez is a fantastic keeper. I'm so jealous with how he plays the ball out. But also Carnesecchi had a really key save from point blank on Albert really late into the game. It's a game of margins. And I think, sometimes quality can show out, but also sometimes it's inches. And however, if the wall was too far, whatever it was, that was a hell of a free kick. and I think that we focus a lot, obviously, on the De Ketelare finish. And I want to talk a little bit about his disrespect towards the Grandinata, because I don't think it had anything to do with the fans. I'll be honest with you. I don't think so. This is something with CDK. I actually commented that I liked the swagger. Obviously, I'm an Atalanta fan, and we know the season that he had prior, right, with Milan, and it's really about silencing the haters. And it just so happened to be that it was in front of the Grandinata Sud, and he did that, right? I almost was okay if I was you, I'd have been like, this punk. Right. I mean, obviously, he's my team. But I definitely think it had less to do with what the Genoa fans than it had to do with just his situation. Right. I mean, you have to admit that his resurgence this year has been probably one of the greatest turnaround stories that we've seen of a highly touted. And, Gasperini, everybody says, oh, Gasperini, there's too much pressure in Milan. Pioli is an idiot. Whatever it is, he's finally showing what he is made of and what was so highly touted of him. What people don't realize is that he went to Milan instead of Atalanta. We had been scouting him for probably the season prior as well and had connections. So he went to Milan instead of Atalanta and had a goose egg of a season for stats. And then he comes here and he's killing it, and 22 million is what the clause is going to be. I mean, we could probably pay that and flip it for 4 times as much to England, if we weren't going to keep him, if we're not in the Champions League or whatever. I just want to point that out there. I definitely said on Twitter, I liked the swagger. No disrespect to Genoa fans whatsoever, but I like the swagger. The best part about that celebration, better than even the goal, was Sabelli running after him right after, right? And Martin Deroon just getting in the way. And of course, we know where Sabelli played, and that was Brescia. He'll forever be Sunni, is what we call the Bresciani. And I just thought that was hilarious. Like when you in the grand scheme of things, when you look at the narrative of games, because this is why we also call it the beautiful game, not just because he scores a beautiful goal, but the drama surrounding. This is our soap opera, Fabry, right? This is what we watch. Some people watch wrestling for the drama. We watch Serie A. We watch Calcio for the drama. You couldn't have asked for a better result. Here comes the old Bresciani running up, complaining. Here comes Di Rono pushing him away. Sabelli's got some demons he needs to exercise against Atalanta, let me tell you.
One last thing before I let you go. is you get that top 4 because you definitely deserve it.
Thank you. If I have anything to do with it, I'll give it all I got. But I'm just going to support and keep going. And you guys have some time, too, to keep pushing. I don't think that Europe is out of the picture for you guys if you keep going. I wish you had found some of this form consistently and would get the results, but those will come if you keep that team. I have to say, I haven't enjoyed watching a team like this for a while, since Sassuolo was playing well, that I would turn on the TV when Atalanta was playing to watch a team. I will watch Genoa because I love the way that they play. So, really good.
Thank you, Dan. Looking forward to seeing you, I guess, soon. Anyways, maybe next year or just a chat about our lovely calcio.
I'm glad we don't have to play you again this year. Let me tell you that.
All right.
All right, ciao.
Ciao. So this was a tough match. It was beautiful. Hopefully, there's a lot of malcontent. Like, people are not super happy mostly about those choices that we were talking just before this. But again, it went how it went. In my mind, the match ended 2-1. The 3-1, 4-1 were just counterattacks because you were trying to do everything possible to get that ball in. So it doesn't matter. 3-1 or 2-1, there's no difference. You lost.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I wanted to talk quickly about Gilardino. We'll talk more about it in the next pod, but the contract is still not signed. There's a lot of comments starting to happen, and we'll more, hopefully nothing to it, but let's hope that this week something changes, but let's keep that for thought.
Fingers crossed.
Exactly. All right, so let's go to our break with our guest coming right up.
My name is Fabrizio Cardone, and I approve this message.
Welcome back, bentornati to La Lanterna podcast. This is our salotto, our living room. Let's rebrand it that way, where we have a guest that came and knocked at our door. Well, we invited him, and we are both very happily to have him with us. And it's Raffa from the Raffa Napoli, the Raffa. Actually, I'll let him say it. My fault.
Yes, okay. That's okay. No, I appreciate it.
I think I like that.
So I was on a show, a YouTube show called the Raff Napoli Rant. We have recently shut that project down due to just life things happening. But that is part of the Far From Vesuvius podcast network. And currently I run a show on the network. I run the network, but I run a show on the network called Noi Tifiamo Napoli. It's this new project that I'm working on. It's basically just a show, just to sort of like what you guys do, kind of come in and chat, like bar talk, just sort of like we're at a pub and what have you. But basically doing that, and that's my thing. Barbering upstate New York, and family and Napoli, and that's pretty much what I do. That's it.
So I guess
Love it.
It's probably normal and to understand the reason why, but it's a fair question to ask. Why Napoli?
Why Napoli? Because it's in my blood. It's in my veins. My father is from Napoli. Right in the city, so he's not from the outskirts. He's not from Avellino. He's not from Salerno. He's not from Quarto, although I have an aunt that lives there now. He's from Napoli. He's from Piazza Garibaldi, and I came here in 1973. I was born in 1983. I was a small child during the Maradona years, so I remember vague moments of it, right here and there. And it just never left our side, I mean, even through Serie B, Fallimento, the return, it was always Napoli first. I mean, obviously, we're watching Serie A. It was, hard enough to come by Serie A matches, let alone follow Napoli in Serie B and then in Serie C. But we were able to somehow, some way, stay attached to the team, even while watching nothing but Serie A. You'd pick a team every year. I would pick a team just to go for randomly, whether there were players on the teams that I liked or what have you. But the national team as well. I'm a big fan of the national team. But Napoli was always number one for me, and it's just something I grew up with. And in growing up while Napoli were, in the dumps and fighting to come back, I watched old tapes of Maradona, and I would look at old books and newspaper clippings, and sort of kind of get any chance I could as a child, find a way to stay attached with Napoli. Buy jerseys. I would look up the players and read the magazines that would have the little clipping on Serie B. And and that's just the way it was, man. Like, it was always Napoli first. Always Napoli first.
That also, one a few things that I wanted to touch upon was the fact that we came up together when we to Serie A. That was an amazing year. That was like, we were almost like the third ones. No, there was no essentially. We were the third ones. But the good thing, that I think that was the first year where if you had more than 10 points, then you wouldn't have to go into the playoffs and so on. So we managed to do that. That was our year with Gasperini. But it was beautiful, that last match in Genova, where all the Napoletani and Genoani were all partying together. It was just like a pro forma match because it didn't really matter. I think maybe for us, we just needed a tie, and that's what happened. And the Invasione del Campo, everybody onto the pitch, it was just like beautiful.
I remember that like it was yesterday. Like I said, I was born in '83, so I'm an older gentleman. Than a lot older than most Napoli fans I know now. But I mean, that was the year after the World Cup, so it was celebrating twice in a row. It's funny because my new co-host on Noi Tifiamo Napoli, his name is Daniel Russo. He told me he got into football watching the World Cup in 2006, and I said, well, then you must have celebrated Napoli as a small child too. And then he was just like, no, that's not really how it happened. He was into the Italian national team players, and that year in Serie B, he was astounded that Juventus was in Serie B, watching Del Piero play there. But then it was actually Napoli-Juve that season, 1-1. Bogliasino made it 1-1. That he fell in love with Napoli because, well, his family are Napoli fans as well, but as a kid you formulate your own opinions. Like, my kids are Steelers fans somehow, don't ask me how, but they are. I don't push them towards a certain way when it comes to their fandom of sports teams, except for Napoli. You can't be anything but a Napoli fan. That's it. It's the only thing I asked for. I told them, listen, any other sport you want to support a team, go ahead, do it. I don't care, even if they're my rivals as a New York sports fan, do it. Fine, but Napoli's got to be in your blood, and that's it. So they've accepted that. But yeah, you mentioned the match. So it's funny that you say that, because I think now in Serie B, and you guys might know this a little more than because Genoa has been back to Serie B. I think that 10-point gap that you needed to have is now like a 14 or 15-point gap.
That's correct.
And you're right. It is the only time that's ever happened, like where, tutto in A senza playoff. And I'll never forget, Napoli had to have a result go their way in another match. I want to say it was Piacenza, and it might have been like Piacenza-Mantova or something like that, where that had to have been a draw or like a Mantova win for Napoli to go through. And I think Piacenza took the lead, and then Mantova scored and tied it. And when they found out that Mantova had tied it, it was kind of when Napoli stopped trying, and we just passed the ball to each other for minutes. And I will never forget full time in Piacenza, where we were still playing 2 more minutes left in extra time. And the place was, the Ferraris was just like crowded with fans, and fans are ripping off players' shorts. And one of the best things about that I'll never forget is Raffaele Auriemma, who was Napoli's play-by-play guy on the radio that season, and in seasons after too. But he was screaming, "Nudi alla meta, tutto in A, tutto in A." If you haven't seen the video, I'll send it to you, because from a Napoli perspective, because it just gives me chills that even to this day that Napoli in general, especially then, we had a gemellaggio, we had a close friendship, Napoli, the two fan bases, to celebrate Serie A together that way. was just magic. And both teams had issues. Like Genoa had just been, found guilty of whatever it was they were found guilty of, and they had to go back down after being promoted. And then us and our, stuff, and just was such a great occasion.
Yeah.
And I celebrated exactly the way I celebrated a World Cup victory just a year prior, and it was a magical moment that I'll never forget. It.
It was wonderful. Also, I'm just looking at the standing now just to refresh my memory. So we, as in Genoa, had 10 points above the fourth, which was Piacenza. Napoli was at 79, and Juventus, well, they were just riding the whole entire season with 85 points, so they were like quite up compared to us. But yeah, no, that was amazing, and that was one of the longest living gemellaggi that existed in Serie A. Mm-hmm. And I think, I can't remember now what year, unfortunately, the gemellaggi got broken because of maybe the newer generations, apparently, or something like that. So, it can happen. It can be renewed. I don't know. It's ultra stuff. So
I'm not 100% sure of the history and why Napoli and Genoa fans are no longer tight with each other. That might be a question for someone named Michele Borelli, who is on another podcast on the network, which is called In the Shadow of Vesuvio. So it's a gentleman by the name of Henry Bell, who lives in Scotland, but he's an Englishman, and he's a big Napoli fan. Same as me, grew up watching Maradona from England, and just kind of fell in love with him, and then started watching Napoli and was a big Daniele Fonseca fan with Napoli after Maradona. And he has a conversation with Michele, who is literally on the ground at Naples. Like, he's literally in the shadow of Vesuvio, which is why the name was created. It's a great show on the network. I urge people to listen to it. Even if you're not a Napoli fan, you can get a really good sense of what's going on in Naples from a fan who's in Curva B every week, and it's a brilliant show. I urge everybody to listen to. But he may know a lot more why the two fan bases had a disconnect. He's at Michele GNT on Twitter, so check him out and ask him all you guys want. Yeah,
definitely will. I know it rings a bell now that you're talking about the Curva B. For something rings this bell saying that it was Curva B that was the one that broke the ties. I'm not even too sure what.
Yeah, I have no clue. I have no clue. It could have definitely been that. I don't know what the circumstance was. I have no idea. I don't know why just out of nowhere it would just disappear. Because I thought it was a pretty cool. I was always very, I always kept my eye on Genoa because of it. I always wanted them to do good, even back in the Milito days, and just thought it was super cool that we had a really close friendship with them. But it's okay. So, what are you gonna do? Maybe one day it'll come back.
Exactly. So same thing happened with us also with Torino, that we had this super long friendship. Then something happened, I think was the year when they were relegated. We were fighting for Europa or something like that. And, someone says something of too much, and then, those.
The Toro one does somehow seem somewhat more bitter. I don't know if that's actually true or not, but I feel like it's you might.
The Toro is like borderline to come back to be. They're like super friends right now. While for the Napoli, my understanding, it's a little bit on the sour side. But again, we're only talking about ultra, so that's not like us. Yeah. For example, like the normal fan, these are like more of the ultras.
It's definitely ultra groups. When you hear about gemellaggi, it's not like, the average Napoli fan with a family is going to go and start fighting with a Genoa fan. Yeah, for sure. And obviously doesn't carry into our friendships and connections.
Not at all.
That's 100% the opposite.
To the contrary, exactly. I was going to say the same thing. Promotion 2006-2007 season. Since then, obviously, Napoli has grown to the point of finally seeing their third Scudetto. And that was last year, where it was the Napoli delle Meraviglie, I would call them, where it was that team that you could not beat, essentially, almost to the levels of. It was just like wonderful watching you guys playing. And to the point of saying, they're going to go to Champions League, kill everybody there. Next year, God knows what's going to happen, because there was a huge disconnect between Napoli and everyone else. even when we first met you guys in the season in this campaign, it was a very difficult, I guess, match also for yourself. It was in Genova. We were winning 2-0, and then the two wonderful, powerful goals by Politano and Raspadori, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
In the dying minutes, and that just kind of like deflated us because we were seeing these 3 points from Super Napoli for us was, right? But obviously we got to deal with it because when you have the superpower, Campioni in Carica, the champions of from the previous season and so on, with two great national players on top of that. And it was a beautiful 2-2 at the end. And at that point, I think Napoli was still doing quite well. But then what happened after that? Because if we're looking right now, barely even making it right now, sitting on the 9th spot and very far from Europa.
Yeah. So at the time, Napoli and Genoa were playing. I think it was the 5th match of the season. I want to say might have been the 4th match, but it was a 2-2. That was actually, for me personally, one of the first indications that we're getting it wrong this season. The reason being is because we had won the first 2 games. You know, we had beaten Frosinone and we had beaten Sassuolo. We lost to Lazio, and then I believe we drew 0-0 to the next opponent, and then it was Genoa. And the Genoa match is where, when we came back and scored those 2 goals, Kvaratskhelia was taken off in the dying moments when we needed a goal and had the momentum for Alessio Zerbini, which just didn't make any sense at all. And I think Rudy Garcia was already under some scrutiny because of the loss and the draw. Games that we should have come away with wins. And that's where the first indication of his mismanagement of the team came about. Now, looking ahead, you know, he would go ahead and leave the team in 4th place, but with 4 losses to his name, 1 being against Empoli, a team that has, at that point, only hadn't had a win in Serie A. I think had 2 draws. No, I'm sorry. They had a win. They had a win and 2 draws, but they only had 3 goals scored to their like, somehow, some way they won a game and drew 2 by only scoring 3 goals at that point of the season. I think it was match 14. Rudy Garcia was fired after we lost 1-0 in the last few seconds of the game. I really think, you're asking me what happened. I think what happened was Rudy Garcia lost the locker room. Rudy Garcia lost the ability to manage the squad. A lot of players just didn't want to play for him. And, you know, we brought in Mazzarri with the idea that, okay, Mazzarri's going to, you know, take us back. He's got a lot more fight than Garcia does. He's likable character to the fans. He's going to play that 4-3-3 that, you know, the difference is Rudy Garcia would when he was appointed, never brought Spalletti's name up once in his entire tenure. Mazzarri came in saying, "Oh, I studied Spalletti. I'm going to play like, you know." But I think what happened was he got handed a really raw deal when his first games were versus Atalanta, you know, Real Madrid, Inter, Juventus right away. Right? Those were his first 4 games back. And, you know, we beat Atalanta, but then we lost the next 3. And I just think at that point, the team was just so down. You had Zielinski with his contract. You had Osimhen with all the BS that was going on with the social media and the you know, the contract of his own, fighting with Kvara's agent, you know, going away to AFCON, you know, a lot of factors, a lot of craziness. And I just think that the team was depleted when Spalletti wasn't, you know, brought back in. You know, we tried to replace Kim Min-jae the way we usually replace team, you know, players, which is go get that next hungry kid that's going to be a star, but he's not ready. So I liken Natan, who is supposed to have been Kim Min-jae's replacement, to Koulibaly when he started with Napoli, who was very green, needed a lot of work, got that experience and developed into top 3 center back in the entire world. Natan's not there yet. So I like the fact that we got Natan for Kim Min-jae, but we did not properly replace. But losing Koulibaly, inserting in Kim Min-jae was the proper replacement for him at that spot. And I know that a center back isn't essentially the most important part of a team. We can get by with one decent center back, a good defense, or what have you. But I really feel like Kim Min-jae was the glue that held that defense together, and that's where we're seeing a lot of mistakes. And it just comes down to Mazzarri doesn't have what Spalletti had, and it got a little worse. And I feel like lately now we have played a lot more compact. We're giving up a lot less chances to opponents, but we're not scoring. So there's the problem. Like,
Right.
You can get away with giving up a goal a game, but when a team is used to scoring 3 goals a game, 4 goals a game, and they don't score, we're not going to get the results. So that's what's happening right now with Napoli. Hopefully Osimhen comes back and changes things around a little bit. Like Mazzarri moved to a 3-man back line recently. He's integrating that into his play along with keeping a 4. So he's being very versatile with formations, but we don't have that finisher in Osimhen. Like, the Simeone taking over Osimhen's position is not working out right now. So we need Osimhen to come in and save the day. And once he does, I think we can be okay. I think there's a fight. And you mentioned, Fabrizio, ninth place, right? Before this past match against Milan, you look at us in ninth or seventh or what have you, and it doesn't look that bad considering 4th to 10th was like only 5-6 points difference, right? But this week everybody won and we couldn't win. So it's a little bit of a hit to our season, and we really very much need to rebound. And if we don't soon, it's going to get worse.
It's not the end of the season, of course. Like, 39 points is the last. Well, if you even include Roma on 6th, it's 38. You guys sitting at 35. It's absolutely achievable. There's no question about that. Let me dig a little bit. I wanted to provoke, in a way, a response, but rumors have it also that ADL, Aurelio De Laurentiis, might be also some cause of friction and issues or whatnot.
I'm pro ADL at heart and overall. The thing is that I see the bigger picture, right? Like, I see what he's done for the club versus like what he's doing this year. And I understand that a lot of what's going on this season does rest heavily on the shoulders of ADL. I'm not denying that. I believe in my heart that he got some things wrong. I tend to see things in a different way than a lot of Napoli fans do. A lot of fans are just kind of killing this guy and are waiting for the moment he decides to sell. Like, they want him gone right away. A lot of fans I know on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it these days. I can admit the fact that he's getting it wrong this season without being so extreme as in saying he's outdone the club. Like, the club has outgrown him. He needs to sell. I don't believe it. Is he eccentric? Yes. Does he say a lot of the wrong things? Yes. Does he stir the pot a lot? Sure he does. Is he the reason a lot of our season is going wrong? 100%. Part of me wants to believe that it's Scudetto hangover. We saw it with Milan and we saw it with Inter, right? I mean, when they won the Scudetto, they had a hangover season, right? They weren't that great the next season around. I mean, maybe except for Inter, who took Milan to the end of the season. But, in the season after that, last season, they had a down season too. So I just think that it's a lot of teams that have restructured themselves are having Scudetto hangover after the Juventus run of 9 Scudetti, right? Like I said, Inter won the Scudetto. They fought with Milan. Milan pipped them for the Scudetto the next season after that. And then both those teams kind of went down. Napoli were here. And now Inter is here where Napoli was last season. And Milan is kind of right there where Napoli's here. I think that that's going to happen over the next few seasons. I don't think that this is a long-term thing with Napoli. I think that Napoli are gonna somehow come back from all this, and I don't want to say make 4th place this season. It's definitely achievable, but if not this season, definitely next season. Like, the one thing Napoli is good at is figuring it out, and getting themselves back to where they need to be. There's cycles that happen, and ADL is a big proponent of that. So people fail to see these things. They're just looking at right now and how right now is going catastrophic. And to be fair, it is one of the worst seasons that we've had under ADL. It is. I'm not denying that. But there have been seasons where we completely underperformed, and then the next season we come back and we're still in Europe, right? If we qualify for Europe this season, we're on 15 straight seasons of Europe. That's pretty
crazy.
impressive.
Huge.
You know, when you guys think about it, we talked about the promotion, right? 07-08 was our first years back in Serie A, right? When you look at even Fiorentina, who just before us, right, was in the same boat where they had, they were Florentia Viola and they had to come out of Serie D pretty much. Who of the three teams between Fiorentina, Genoa, and Napoli that had struggled at that time and clawed their way back up have succeeded the most? I mean, it's Napoli. It's not even a debate. It's the fact. Napoli have qualified every single season for Europe besides one season in ADL's tenure, and that was 08-09. They failed to qualify in 08-09, but in 09-10, they made it back to Europa League, and since then, they've been in Europe. So one season since 2007, Napoli has not made Europe. That's pretty impressive, if you ask me. So it's in our nature to rebound, right? And it's just, I think what it is everybody's upside down about this because we just had the season we had, because we were supposed to be this force to be reckoned with in the Champions League, especially this season. We're not that. And it's bothering a lot of people. It bothers me a lot, but I like to look at the bigger picture, and try not to lose. It's frustrating. Trust me, watching a Napoli game these days is very frustrating. But there's light, in my opinion, at the end of the tunnel.
I mean, look, to your point, you talked about Kim and Jae, like you didn't have to deal with AFCON in the same way. You basically are losing Osimhen for half the season. And Kvara's not the same Kvara from last year. At least he hasn't been the whole season. So it's kind of a fluky type of a campaign in some ways. It feels like that. You have all that stuff happening, managerial changes twice over within the span of a season, going back to last season. So I think there's reason to look at it like this isn't a state of the future for Napoli. It seems.
Yeah, I agree. And another thing that I kind of alluded to before, but I'll expand on now is a Scudetto hangover, right? Nobody more than Napoli should know how. Let me see if I don't think I'm wording this the right way. If anybody would have a problem with defending a Scudetto, it should be Napoli. Because when you think about it, okay, since Lazio in 2001, nobody else has ever won a Scudetto besides Inter, Milan, Juventus. And these are three teams that know how to do business. They know how to go from season to season being what they are, right? Even as Juve had their 9 straight titles, Inter came back, won their Scudetto. It was the first team to beat, to break that streak. They have Beppe Marotta that knows how, because he did it with Juve. He knows how to react. He knows how to defend it. He knows how to move forward. Milan had guys like Maldini and the people that were at the head over there after they won their Scudetto. They know how to do it. They knew how to react with a Scudetto. It's just these are fan bases, these are teams, these are entities, these are people who knew how to take care of business after that. You got Napoli, who hasn't won a Scudetto since Maradona. This is the first Scudetto they've ever won without Diego Maradona. The city, the owner, the manager, the staff, these guys, this is brand new territory for us. This is something that we never even, fans were starting to give up on. People were literally giving up on De Laurentiis, saying, he's hit his ceiling. Just the season before, maybe De Laurentiis hit his ceiling, these guys are leaving, maybe he needs to sell, blah, 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 and then boom, we win a Scudetto. Honest to God, nobody had Napoli in the top 4, and I had them at 4th last season with Kim Min-jae, Kvaratskhelia coming in. Because when you lose Insigne, Mertens, Koulibaly, Fabian, and Ospina in the same season, this is a what's the word I'm looking? This is it's a rebound season. It's a restart. It's a rebuild. It's a rebuild. Yeah. We're in a even though De Laurentiis in his press conference in the summer of that season said we're going to win the Scudetto, and Spalletti looked at him and kind of smirked. He doesn't use those words. De Laurentiis will not say that if he doesn't believe it. But everybody else was like, this is a rebuild year. This is a rebuild. Kvaratskhelia, Kim Min-jae, who are these guys, Right. But inside the first rebuild year, we win the Scudetto. It was in amazing fashion. It wasn't even down to the wire. We won the Scudetto in January, guys. When Napoli beat Roma at the end of January, I was like, Done. We're winning this thing. It's over. This is territory that we've never seen before. Like I guarantee you, if Genoa next season somehow, some way wins the Scudetto, right? Bedlam, but also bedlam within the organization. Like how the hell do we react now? You know what I mean?
It's true.
So as much as De Laurentiis has a knack for rebuilding and a knack for rebounding and a knack for coming back the next year and figuring it out, once again, this was uncharted territory. So during the time he's celebrating the Scudetto, getting the city ready, getting the team ready, he's a big showman, so he's doing the production, all that stuff, right? Inside that time, I feel like he lost focus of Giuntoli told me in January he wanted to leave for Juventus. Spalletti is not happy with his contract. He wants more money. Like Spalletti was not signed, but Spalletti was basically a lock in March when we knew Gattuso wasn't going to stay. Same thing with Ancelotti when Ancelotti was ready to go right away. You know, it took a while for us to get Rudy Garcia in and a bunch of no's. So in my opinion, we just lost focus on what we do best, and that's rebuild for the next season, because we were in party mode, you know, and celebrating and getting ready for a Scudetto lift is something we've never dealt with before. So that's my take on how, you know, what's going on with Napoli at ADL, and it sounds like a giant excuse, I know it, but like you can't go back to the like, you can't tell me we lose one or two players on that squad and we come back worse than we are without lack of planning in the back.
Makes total sense.
No, absolutely. As you said, the best description I would say is the hangover.
Yeah.
But okay, so having said that, so obviously we said before, it's not impossible still to achieve any spot for Europe. Maybe perhaps it's a little bit tougher. Still not impossible because the ball is still round for the fourth spot on Champions League.
Sure.
However, now what are we, like 14 matches left?
Well, yeah, Napoli actually have 15 because they have a game in hand. They missed a game for the Super Cup. So I think we make that up at the very end of February. I think it's like the 28th of February. We make that game up.
That's an important one too, right? So that might close in the gap also, at least with the last spot in Europe.
I think it's against Torino, as a matter of fact.
Quite important.
They're also, that's right.
Next one coming up on Saturday at the Maradona. So in Napoli is hosting Genoa. Genoa, very different face, different team altogether from match day 4. What do you foresee? What do you think about that match?
So here's the thing is, what I feel about the game is a little bit of unease. I'm uneasy about it because I really like Genoa. I like how they play. I like what Gilardino has done with them. I know they've had some bad results as of late, and they've slipped, but they really came out strong. I actually heard you guys on Culture Guys earlier this year, and you know, the way you guys were talking about Genoa just kind of got me going. I was super excited about Goodmanson and Retegui and I really actually like the team shape. I like them. What I don't like is that Victor Osimhen might not be featuring in the game. I know he just came back from AFCON. Yeah, this is probably breaking news. I think he's being given another match off to like rest up for Barcelona. We have Barcelona on Wednesday. He's coming back, and I know, and I just put a tweet out earlier today, and because I'm actually in favor of maybe Osimhen getting a little bit of rest. He could sit on the bench if he's not fully fit. I don't want him to play before Barcelona. I'd rather us just come at you guys without Osimhen and give it our best. We're pretty much in dire straits right now, so it would be better to have Osimhen here. Like I said, I think Osimhen coming into the system that Mazzarri has created now would work out for us, and the chances that we try to create would be actual chances on net, and then those can become goals. But I'm pretty worried about it. I'm not going to lie. And I know that at home lately, we've been like Zona Mazzarri again when we're scoring in the last few minutes to win the game. But, you guys gave us a run for our money, back in September. And what's saying that you won't do that now? Unless you guys have injuries or suspensions that I'm looking at, I don't really see anybody that's really out for you guys, and we're going to be missing Juan Jesus, who, oddly enough, is actually one of the best defenders this season for us, which is very odd to say, but it's true. Natan is back, so maybe we'll see him, but it could really go either way. Like, I wanted to come on here saying, Napoli 4-1, but definitely not. That's not going to happen. So I'd like to see how Napoli takes shape against Genoa.
So before, I guess, we go into the predictions, my question is, what's your weakest point? You might have touched upon it already, but in the overall, when I'm more talking about defense, midfield, forward, and what's the same on the opposite side for Genoa? What's the one that you fear the most?
I really like the attack for Genoa. I like it. I do. I like Genoa's attack. If they can come together, they're going to score on Napoli. The defense for Napoli is something's going on there. Even though as of late they've been a lot more compact, we're still giving up a goal. It's probably a given we'll give up a goal. I would also say that a big weakness is the attack, but I don't think it's fair to say that when we've had Osimhen out at AFCON all this time. So I'm going to reserve that notion for when Osimhen gets back and see what he. So I'll go back to it. It's the defense. It's the defense that's been very inconsistent, and I'll pinpoint one guy. It's Amir Rahmani. If you guys can, which you probably can, if you guys can beat Rahmani, you're going to score a goal, and that's plain and simple. Even though I really like Golini as our goalkeeper, who's been doing phenomenally, just having a phenomenal goalkeeper doesn't mean that they can't get scored on. Rahmani has had an awful season, and without Juan Jesus, which is, again, crazy for me to say, without Juan Jesus could really leave us exposed. You have a Natan that's coming back. We have Ostigard that's on the bench, and I like Ostigard, but I just don't know. It's a new unknown because in this new formation. But like I said, on the opposite side, ever since Mazzarri moved to a 3-man backline and sometimes he'll actually be a 5-man and a 3. He'll change in mid-match. Napoli have been very compact. I mean, we saw the one goal against Salernitana, which was a magical goal by Candreva, who scores world-class goals against big teams. Is just what he does. There was nothing we could do on that front, so I don't fault the defense there. But that was kind of our first game in a 3-man. Then we had they played a 4-man. We started the 3-man in the Super Cup with against Fiorentina, beat him 3-0. Held Inter to nothing until the 91st minute in the final. Came back and did the same. Was very compact against Lazio. Was very good besides Rahmani against Verona. So we've seen a sort of a better defensive performance. But when you can get to Rahmani, is where you can penetrate that defense. So if you guys can somehow telepathically get this message out to Genoa, that's what you got to do. You got to get Rahmani and you got to double team the guy because he'll miss a mark and he'll get scored on for sure.
So I'm here already telegraphing the guys as telling them what to do. No, jokes on the side. So having said this, we'll keep an eye on that one, at least from a spectator's point of view.
For sure.
So I guess let's dive into the predictions. Okay. So I would say, tell me what you foresee from the match.
Low scoring, definitely low scoring, especially if Osimhen. Now it's a rumor, it's not confirmed, but the way I see it, a lot of fans out there are saying he just doesn't care about Napoli, and that's why he's not going to play against Genoa. And look at Lookman and look at Chukwueze, who are coming back to their team. Newsflash: Atalanta have a bye in the Europa League, and Milan do play Europa League, I believe, but it's a Europa League match, and they have whatever. Right? Napoli played Barcelona in the round of 16 in the Champions League. If you have a chance to rest Osimhen, who just came back from the final of AFCON, and had been, pretty much decimated in that competition. Like, he was marked and fouled a lot. I watched every Nigeria game. He was marked, he was fouled, he was hurt. He's a player that plays with 110%. He's headstrong. So when he's going to go into a tackle, he's going in full. That's why he's accident prone. I like to call him accident prone, not injury prone. And he was banged up in the semifinal. If he is granted a match off to rest for Barcelona, I think we're going to see either a 1-1 or, I'm going to go ahead and say it, 1-0 to Genoa. Like, that's just the reality of the situation right now. We are not like it.
Even if at the Maradona.
It's at the Maradona, so I might put it this way: I wouldn't be surprised if a 1-0 to Genoa. But since it's at the Maradona, and if Napoli plays second half at Curva B, it could either be, I say Genoa go up and then Napoli either equalize or get a, like, I'm talking last minute winner, last gasp.
Could happen.
But
we must lead the league in
again,
last goals after 90 minutes.
Definitely, and I 100 again. I know I'm all over the place with my prediction, but I can literally see 1-0, 1-1, 1-0 Genoa, 1-1 or 2-1 Napoli at death. Like, it's going to happen. One of those three are going to happen.
I shouldn't be laughing because I feel like it is, like, for sure going to happen, and I think it's going to happen on the wrong end to us. But it just has been such a theme this season. I mean, it was the same way the last match. Not exactly, because we were already down, but.
Right.
So many times. I think it's now 7 goals after 90 minutes in the league, which is incredible.
That you guys have given up.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a good stat for Napoli since when Walter Mazzarri is on the bench, Napoli score the most goals after, like, the 85th minute. It just, look it up, even from his first stint. It was literally called Zona Mazzarri for that reason. So
now
we'll have to see.
I do have to throw a stone in our favor that this statistic has kind of waned down. Forget about the last match.
It was kind of a weird end of the match.
Yeah. But the dying minutes of always conceding kind of has finished, so I'm hoping not to happen that way. Anyways,
Okay.
Matt.
Okay.
I think it's going to be, I also definitely backed Raff on a low-scoring match. I couldn't believe this. I guess Simeone is averaging the most shots per any player on Napoli, which is, like, insane. I guess it makes sense given that Osimhen's been gone for however many months with the tournament and everything else. But, obviously we talked earlier about how different this season has been for different reasons, and not what you remember from the Napoli team from last season and even from when we played earlier in the year. But I feel like it's going to be a challenging match for us too. I'm equally nervous about the match just because of the talent that Napoli have. And we saw that last match. We're at Marassi. We have a great plan. We really execute it well. Everybody does what they need to do. And you get 2 moments of brilliance, and then you have 3 points that turn into 1. And it was, in the end, a fair result because of that. You have players who have that capability. You can make that happen. And, it doesn't matter how hard you try or how well you studied if you don't have enough to counterbalance that. I think that for us, what's going to be a little bit interesting is, these last few matches have been not exactly uneven. We've had some kind of interesting periods for us. Obviously, we didn't quite get it done at Atalanta. Obviously, that scoreline definitely flatters Adea. We had kind of an uninspired draw the week before that. Ups and downs for us recently. How our backline also is going to respond to this, I think, would be somewhat interesting. There have been some fingers pointed in certain players in our camp recently as well, which I think some of that's unfair. I know we were talking a little bit on the group chat too about some folks singling out Vogliacco and stuff like that, which that was kind of BS personally, but I also am kind of a Vogliacco fan. But I think it's a combination of maybe not quite the same assuredness. We have different players coming in, Dragushin leaving. I mean, I'm with you too. Like a center back, selling a center back usually isn't going to blow up your team, but all of a sudden it kind of feels like how we're balancing that back line. And while we're also introducing other fullbacks to the team, it doesn't seem like we've exactly found the right balance on that side yet. Having said that, we haven't given up a whole lot of goals, but I think there's still potential for some confusion or for some errors on that side of things. And I'll also say that, to be completely honest with you, Retegui, as wonderful as he is, I've not been blown away since his return. He's had a couple of wonderful moments. He's had some great shots, but I'm not sure we've really found, at the beginning of this campaign, it seemed like after all these years of Mattia Destro being our leading scorer, or Goran Pandev or something at the end of his career where we're like barely scraping by and getting goals. it seemed like this season was going to be a season of like high-flying Genoa and goals all the time, and talent. And we definitely have that. We have a lot of amazing attacking play, but it's not still really worked for us. And I think for me, I would imagine the match ending probably a 1-1 also. That seems appropriate to me.
Yeah.
I kind of like an Ekuban goal, maybe coming off of the bench in like the 60th minute or something and breaking the deadlock. This has been his best campaign for us by far.
I have him on my fantasy. He sits on my bench, but I tell you what, he's impressive.
It's crazy.
Very impressive. Yeah.
It's been great seeing it too. So I think it's going to be a difficult match. I think I'm curious to see how Gilardino responds in this match too, and just to some of the recent things that had gone on. I don't even know how you pick up the guys after kind of a deflating into the match like it was last week, but my intuition is that it was kind of already known we were going to lose the 3 points and we were doing something to get something back, and it just didn't work out in the end. So
who's going to go up first?
Genoa.
I think we will. I do too.
On a Malinowski worldie.
Yeah, also possible. Saw one of those last week again.
Yeah.
All right, from my point of view, I think that, as you said too, as Matt said earlier, the match, and we know it, but the match against Atalanta it's definitely flattering Atalanta themselves. So the 4-1 does not really reflect. I even scolded the guys on the Culture guys, where they were saying this is a match not even to talk about. No, it is to talk about, and that means but that's a different story. I think that it's just a stop in the path that Gilardino has been taking after 8 consecutive matches that
results,
exactly, positive results. I think that streak is still there. To Matt's topic, when he was saying losing the center back, it's not the end of the team itself and so on. Sure. It proves it too as well. Like, since his departure, we did have a tie against Bologna, a tie against Torino, a win at Salerno, the win against Lecce, and the tie with Napoli, which is in a resurgence themselves as well. And out of that, I can only count 1, 2.
They gave up 2 goals, I believe.
Conceded, right? So what I'm trying to say with that is, forget the Atalanta. That's not to count it in statistics. You have to, but in my mind, that match ended at 2-1 for Atalanta. So I think also because actually of that result, I think the team is going to go down to Napoli with that revenge in their teeth to say we need to show that we are still there, and nothing really happened to us. It was just like a great team that we had to concede. And the unfortunate part for Napoli, of course, that are not in the best moment of form, can have that opportunity, even though it's at the Maradona. I'm more leaning towards a tie, but at the same time, to Raffa's point, I think there is an opportunity for Genoa to hit them where it hurts the most, and perhaps, quote unquote, I'm using that very lightly, to recuperate those points where we had lost in the first leg and maybe winning it at the Maradona. So I'm going to say it's a win, just because I have to pick one of the two. But I'm totally on with all. The theme is all 3 of us together, that it's not going to be a high scoring match, and I think it's just going to be a 1-0.
Watch, we all predicted a low scoring match, and somehow, some way, it's like a 3-3.
Yeah, right.
Which I also wouldn't be surprised at, honestly. On the Napoli end, it's so unpredictable. It really is unpredictable, because there have been times where this team, I think we performed great against Milan. We made that one mistake once again, Rachmani, and that lost us the game. Offensively we struggle. I mean, you guys won't believe it, but Napoli took their first shot on target away in a month in that game. In a month. That's an insane stat. Not even, forget goal. Shot on target. Forget shot, period. Shot on target. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And honestly, at home, we suffer at home. I mean, we're 5 wins, 2 draws, and 4 losses at home. We're 16, 4, and 15 against. So it's not been pretty. It just hasn't. And away from, I'm looking at you guys, away from home, you guys are pretty much like at 50%, where 12 matches played, you guys have 3 wins, 3 draws, 6 losses. So in half your games away, you're getting points. Well, I would not be surprised if you're getting points against Napoli in this one, honestly.
Yeah, we've been always struggling a little bit more away from the Ferraris.
Sure.
Again, forget about the last match, which doesn't really count much. But I mean, it does, but it doesn't.
To be fair, there's an Atalanta that's kind of on fire at this moment. You know,
Right.
Charles De Ketelaere is just.
I mean, that first goal
right
was
now.
ridiculous.
Yeah. Actually, to be honest with you, I think it was like the first 3 goals that were just magnificent. Like De Ketelaere, Malinowski, and then
Zappacosta?
Zappacosta. Yeah.
Right.
Just crazy. Yeah. I think it
No,
was.
the free kick. Who did the free? I don't
Zappacosta was the third. That's right. It was
the free kick guy. And he was linked to Napoli big time. Gosh, his name is escaping me. Yeah, I know who it is.
Coop Wieners.
Coop
Yes.
Wieners. That's it.
We are.
Yeah.
How do we forget? Yes.
All right, so I guess we're at a wrap. We both wanted to personally thank you very much for being in our salotto, in our living room.
Yes.
So Raffa, if anybody wants to reach out or follow you, where can they do that?
You can find me at Raffa Napoli 83 on X. Also, the show is at Tifiamo _ sorry, I just created it. It's Tifiamo NA _ FFV. That's the show's X account handle. And I'm on Instagram, Raffa Rispo. You can find me in those places. And I'm very easily accessible. You can DM me, you can just at me or whatever you want to do, and I'll chat with you guys. And I get a lot of crap for a lot of my takes because a lot of people don't agree with me, but that's fine. That's the beauty of what we do.
That's
right?
all about, baby.
That's what it's all about. As long as you're paying attention to me, that's fine. It's the same few too. The same few will hit me with the, hey, but they're paying attention to me, right? So
I love it.
That's right. That's
it's
right.
all good.
So we will definitely tag you in all platforms, on all platforms.
Thank you.
And all right, so thanks once again, Raffa. It was a great pleasure to have you with us. We are looking forward to the match on Saturday. May the best win regardless. And as long as it's an exciting match rather than the boring, regardless of what that result is, like, even for us, losing at Atalanta 4-1, it was an exciting match.
It was a great match. Yeah.
It was. I watched it. It was a great match. It was
From
a great
a neutral
match.
perspective, I can only imagine.
Yeah, you know, we're you got to picture us, the 3 of us standing at the barbershop cutting hair, and we're just kind of like watching Calcio all day long. It's wonderful. I love the weekends at the barbershop because we just got all different leagues and 3 different TVs, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And we had the Genoa Atalanta game on the big TV, and we really felt bad for Genoa because, you know, I really needed a Genoa result in that one. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it looked like it might have happened. But.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks again, Raffa. Definitely we'll have you again. And never forget, always and forever, Forza Genoa.
You've listened to La Lanterna, a spotlight on Italian football, a podcast powered by Genoani Si Resta. Thank you for listening and see you next week.